welcome to yet another Bloomz, Babble and Beyond, this wonderful monthly chat where we have our artists in residence here and we talk about a subject that is related to our art. And today the subject is evolution. Now, to an artist, that can mean many, many things. How you evolved as an artist, when you started, how your art is evolving now. So a great subject. I'm sure we're going to find out some amazing things about the evolution of our artists in the Bloomz today. So welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. And it is everybody. We've actually got everybody here.
Everybody, the first time we've got a full complement of Bloomz. That's a garden of Bloomz here ready to talk about the evolution of their art. So yeah, so I try to choose a topic each month that sort of gets us thinking, and I think and as broad as possible, because if you narrow it down too much, you know, it doesn't give us a chance to go off at some tangents. I know we all love to go off at tangents. So evolution, how is your art evolved? I'm going to go to Steph first.
Oh,
put her on the spot this morning.
I won't. You never come to me
Steph
first.
about the evolution of your art.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I was thinking about this only the other day, how because I'm a needle felting artist, sculpting, and very much when I started out, there seemed to be, because it's quite a new art form, sort of about 1986, since we've been using needle felting to do sculpting rather than 2D. And it was very much, you must be very pure, you know, it must be wool, you can't add anything, it has to be, even when you do, you know, nails and toes and things like that, don't bring any other media into it, which of course, as an artist, you feel incredibly encroached upon. And it was after I'd gone through the process of learning and coming up through those teachers. And it was probably more when I'd actually met the Bloomz that was much more then encouraged by everyone to go outside of that and use everything. And I felt like suddenly, you know, the world was my oyster, that I could use whatever I bloody well wanted on my pieces because it was my art. And suddenly it opened up, you know, the colours and how I can incorporate. I mean, in my horse, the Pegasus, where I did silver hooves and things like that. But there's so much more to investigate, and I found that was my biggest leap. And ever since then, all I'm thinking of, and also within the Bloomz, it's like I wanted to use some gold leaf, and Fiona's a real gold leafer. But what's brilliant also within the Bloomz is that I'm able to say, hang on a sec, you know, where's the best place to get it? What can I use to actually make it all work? Or even when I did my little bird, which I can't think of the name of, but hummingbird with the glistens, wasn't it? And Cindy was saying about all the artist materials that I could use maybe to make the wings glisten. And suddenly you're able to do so many different things. And now I'm not just doing real animals, I'm doing fantastical animals and, you know, animals which have been long extinct because, yeah, who knows what colour they were, you know. Prove to me what colour a dodo really was.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh dear. But
needle felting is relatively young, as you said.
Yeah.
The actual forming of felt isn't young, but the actual using it as an art and
wet felting's been around since the the Egyptians and everything. You still found, but needle felting was an industrial process. It's the needles which came out of the machines to make the flat felt, and it's those needles that we use. And it wasn't until 1986 that they actually started taking those needles and using them individually to sculpt. But I guess because when something is so young, you do start off, I suppose that's when you learn anything, isn't it? You have to go through the tutors and learn exactly how you should do it properly. And it's only once you go, right, now I'm gonna spread my wings and do, that's when you really feel like you're creating, isn't it, for you? But you do need to go through that process because you need to understand how all those things work before you can then throw the rule book away.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As an artist, you've tried all different sorts of things over the years. What made you start needle felting?
Well, actually, it was I saw a piece and it was on Pinterest, and I love animals like Cindy. I'm just, you know, connected to animals, and I think it was actually of a tiger. And I thought, what the hell is that made of? Because it was like, it's clearly not clay. There's some sort of texture in there and fluff in there. And it said needle felting, but there wasn't much online really about it. And you couldn't get masses of kits or anything like that. So it took quite a while for me to find somebody in America who actually was doing YouTube instruction and everything. And that's who I then thought, right, I'm going to learn how to do this. But that was the point when I realised, because I'd always thought, I love crafts, I love giving everything a go. You know, it was always a bit of a joke. You come around my house, what projects you doing this week? You know, what little events going on. But I'd never considered myself to really be able to draw or paint. But it was once I'd done needle felting that I realised I see in 3D. And the moment the 3D element came into it, it was like, that's my thing. If only I'd known earlier. But no, but everything I've done until now, I now use in my needle felting, you know, and I've now adapted that even further, which is I've always created little teddy bears and I make people's dogs and I needle felt the faces so that someone can actually have a little teddy bear with their little animals' faces and things like that. So it just, you know, you can do it on anything.
And where do you see yourself evolving then? What's the next stage in your...
Big. I think I'm going big.
You're going big?
Yeah. But I've got my project, which I'm so excited about, which is the Phoenix.
Oh, the Phoenix, yes.
And that's big, you know. So I think there's two aspects of it, isn't there? There's your own pieces that you think, oh, I've got to do this. And that for me is going to go big and go fantastical. And the other part of it is teaching other people, which I love doing, and so I want to take that a bit further. And I already work with the crafted kit company who do kits and things, so I don't necessarily need to make my own kits because I work with them and that's fantastic. But I'd like to do courses. But for me, I'd just like to create some fantastic, and a dodo. I've got a dodo in me. I've just, you know, got to go with that.
Absolutely amazing. So do other needle felters comment on how yours are different to theirs? I mean, the different techniques, because you have gone out there, you have gone really left field with some of your stuff.
Well, I suppose it's like all areas of art. People are specialists in their own areas, and there are a couple of ladies who are specialists in doing specific dogs. Another lady in this country which does wild animals, and so foxes, badgers, things like that, and they very much specialize in those. And I guess I haven't really specialized other than I do like to do realism. There was an element of the face, or even if I'm gone crazy elsewhere, that I need to so no, I don't. I mean, I suppose it's not like we don't have a club where we meet up and talk about it, so I don't really know.
This is your club where you meet up.
Yeah, exactly. This is where I'll come to. I'll come to us here and sort of say, God, this is what I'm doing and this is where I'm going. I guess, you know, I have people contact me who want to learn from me. So, you know, there obviously is an aspect that people can see in my work that they'd like to do. But yeah, it sounds weird, but I don't really talk to other needle felters. Is that good or bad? I don't know.
Sammy, your abstract art, that must have evolved in an amazing way for you over the years, because your time as an artist goes back a lot further than Steph's, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does. But I just want to comment on one thing that Stephanie said about having to do the basics. All of us as artists, we all have to learn the foundations and have all the foundation skills and in place before we can progress. So when someone is new coming to any art form, I always encourage them, go and learn the basics and then build upon that, because if you don't have the basic knowledge and the foundations, then how can you evolve?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Because you need to have that. You need to have that general learning to evolve. And it doesn't mean that you have to go off to art school. It means you get to speak to someone else that's doing something that you'd like to do and learn from them. So it doesn't have to be a formal training, but it does have to be a foundation to then build upon to be able to evolve your work. And yeah, so with my work, whenever I speak to other abstract artists and they'll say, well, actually, you can't do that because in the book of abstract, that's not allowed. And I go, well, now I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like a book of the Bible, isn't it? The book of abstract.
People love to do that, though, don't they? Isn't it funny? Even in the art world, where you think you're supposed to express yourself, no, you still need to colour between the lines.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
and
people
I think.
Sorry, I was just going to say, people don't like it when you go outside the rules, like when you break the rules.
No.
But that
makes them feel uncomfortable.
That's when the best evolution happens, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mistakes.
Absolutely.
Mistakes.
Yeah, fabulous.
For evolution.
Yeah.
Well, what you think is a mistake in one piece, in actual fact, you've logged how you've done it, and when you go to your next piece, you think, actually, I want that here because now that will fit.
Yeah.
So nothing's ever a mistake. Everything's a learning. Everything should be joyful. Everything should challenge you as an artist, but also it should give you that feeling of, yeah, that's brilliant. I only like this section of it, so I'm going to cut it out and I'm going to save it for a piece later on. But that bit is brilliant.
Love that idea.
So I have lots of canvases with holes cut out of.
The mice have been in.
But you never know when you need it next time. I mean, I've got boxes and boxes of artwork that I've literally shredded into ribbons or circles or squares or whatever, because I know at some point I'm gonna need them, because I remember, I know I did that technique. I sort of have replicated it here, not quite worked, but I'll use that bit, stick it on. There you go.
It's amazing. I mean, with art in general, all sorts of different art, everybody's evolution follows a different pattern. Some people do stick to the rules, don't they? And amazing. But I think maybe with your art, Sammy, because you do a mixed media, not just acrylics, you've got more sort of depth to the ability to evolve, I think, with that. Because some of your art is amazing, because there's hidden stuff that no one will ever see, but as an artist, it's there.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important for me. And I actually, when I speak to all of the Bloomz, we've all got that there as well. It's not necessarily just what you see on the surface, it's everything underneath. And there's that quote that comes up on Instagram quite a lot. How long did it take you to paint this piece? Well, actually, it's taken me 25 years because I've got 25 years of experience, etc., etc. And that's what people forget. But yeah, so in my work, I have a lot of hidden pieces underneath, but they're there for a reason, and it brings you to the top layer. So I had one show way before lockdown. And a chap came up to me and said, I really love this piece of work. And I said, oh, brilliant. What do you like about it? We were chatting about it. And then he got his phone out and he showed me a piece of another artist. And he said, could you paint that for me? I said, beg your pardon? He said, could you paint that for me? And I said, no. I said, I don't do that. I don't do copies. Oh, but if you could. I said, no. And I said, but the thing is, if I did that, you wouldn't be getting that piece. No. All you're getting is the top layer. I said, and one, I wouldn't do it. And anyone that would do it, you're only getting the top layer. You're not getting the depth of that painting. I said, so why not go to the artist? That artist is still living, still earning a living. So why don't you go there and pay him for it? Oh, well, I thought you'd just want some money. I said, no, I don't just want some money.
Money is nice.
So people have very, very different ideas about art and what sits with them. I mean, I would never rip off anyone else's work. We look at art and I see how other artists create, and I think I love that. And I may use that process, not the process, that technique. But I would never rip off someone else's work. And I don't think any artist worth their salt would either.
No.
What a lot of people don't realise is, as you just touched on there, is included with the process is all of the changes you make as you go along, the thought process you put into it. With you, Sammy, it's the essay you write first of all. If you just want to reproduce somebody else's work, you can't do that. But as a whole, the actual, rather than us just evolve as artists, the actual piece of art that you're making evolves as well in a shorter time span, obviously, as you're painting it, doesn't it? Because it can finish up nothing like you intended it to do in the start.
Absolutely, and I think that's with all our work, it can go that way. We have a plan, we have an idea. Like say, I have an essay, but I'm not so rigid that I don't go back and I will put an extra paragraph or whatever to illustrate why I'm changing what I'm changing and the reason behind it. Another brilliant example is actually Julie's work. I mean, she's working with molten wax, and the way she works, I mean, I'm speaking for you, Julie, but the way Julie works is that she has to be really on board and focused, but also allow that wax to move. See, I couldn't do that, but Julie does.
And presumably, Julie, you can't control how that wax moves, really. I mean, you can to some degree, but
yes.
You might find some of it goes off and you might think, oh, that looks quite good, actually.
Yeah, you can use it to that effect. You can, but you can control it. It depends how much you fuse it. I mean, you can kind of really go in with the heat gun and melt all those colours together and get them blending together. Or you can do a very light fuse, so enough that it's bonded, but not so much that you've splattered it everywhere. So, and then you kind of got tools, so you pull it back into place and everything. So you can control it, but it depends which level you want to go to.
Probably of all the Bloomz artists here, your art has evolved more over the past year or two than most people's, hasn't it? With your move to photography as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been on a constant evolution right the way through, really. I mean, if I could just keep my ideas under control, I'd be really happy, but they just...
I don't think you should. I think the fact that you don't keep your ideas under control is what makes you...
I just see one thing and I'm like, oh.
Being under control and Julie aren't two things which go together, really, do they? You know?
It's like a giant cacophony of chaos. It's to work somehow.
What made you evolve? I mean, did your artistic career start off as an encaustic artist?
No. So I started with pencil, and then it moved on to pastel and a bit of watercolor, and I was kind of doing that. And then I was actually exhibiting at my first ever art show, and I was walking around looking, and I literally had like 2 pencil pieces and 1 watercolor and 3 pastels. It was the most kind of mismatched, random, like, oh, that looks good, I'll go and do that. And there were, Cornwall beach scenes and churches in Hertfordshire. There was a complete mix. It was literally my evolution from literally starting. I only started painting or drawing in 2011, so it was, and it was just like went in with both feet. But it was at that exhibition, I was walking around, and I can just remember it to this day, and I could just see it there, and there was this piece that just stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, what is that? I've got to find out what it is. And yeah, I went off and did I started with a workshop, and we were literally working with pre-coloured wax blocks with an iron and painting onto encaustic paper, which I loved. I mean, I just did it non-stop, 24 hours a day, it felt, until I could work out how was I getting those colours, how was I getting those textures and what have you. And I did that for a couple of years, and had stylists and all sorts of different tools you can use, and heat gun, and then I got my hot plate, and I was like a kiddie in a candy store. Oh, something new there. But then I found a YouTube video where this lady was setting a light. So this was like, she had coloured her own beeswax with resin in it, and she'd coloured it herself, and then she set fire to it, and I was like, the effect was incredible. It had this beautiful organic texture to it, and I'm like, I've got to find out what that is.
It's like raku firing, isn't it? It's pottery. You've got no idea how it's going to end up.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then, but what that did is, by going into that and then understanding and as Sammy and Stephanie were just saying, understand the basics and the foundations. You need to understand, that kind of basic foundation. But then from there, all those other mediums that I've been using, I could then bring my pastel in, I could bring my watercolours in, I could bring all the mixed media. So all of those things then kind of came back. And then just as Sammy's saying, you've got boxes and boxes of things. You're like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. And then you're like, oh, that now works with the wax. But, you need those years of understanding and layers of depth to kind of get to that point. So, yeah. And then obviously gone on to the photography as well. So, yeah, constant evolution. So, yeah.
But you're now combining the photography and the caustic in the same piece of art.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing.
Yeah, there's a technique called photo encaustic, and it's beautiful. You can be quite pure with it. So you put your image on and then you cover it with wax. And you on first glance, you can look at it and think, well, not much to that. That looks really easy. Believe you me, trying to get a perfectly level, evenly balanced, particularly on the larger scale you go, it is, it's tricky to get that that really flat sort of, it's almost kind of glass clear layer on top. But so you can still see the image underneath, but it's, there's depth to it, there's texture, but it's quite a smooth finish to it. Or you can just add color on top and then kind of accentuate certain areas, and it's I just love it. It's just, so you kind of get glimpses of the photograph underneath, but then you've got all these extra textures and color on top. So yeah, it's
and where do you see it going from here then? Obviously there's something exciting going on in your head at the moment. Yeah,
there is. I know. Oh my goodness. Well, I don't want to say too much, but I'm really hoping we've got the studio back in place again. So one of the reasons I really got into the photography, so I think I've said before, we've moved recently from Hertfordshire down to Cornwall. Well, I grew up in Cornwall, so I'm back in my sort of home area. And photography, you can just do it out and about. And I literally do all my photography on my smartphone. So I do that, and because I haven't had a studio, I've got bits and pieces of materials around, but nothing that you can kind of set up properly. So it's been great because it's given me that creative outlet on my phone. But I'm really hoping that I'm going to have a studio very, very soon. So that will be my next evolution.
We look forward to seeing
and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But traveling across the world then to Oz, we've got our Cindy up there. I mean, what a country to evolve as an artist in, especially an animal artist. Just amazing. Tell us a bit about how your art's evolved, because you've got quite an art history behind you, haven't you, with all the different things that you've done.
I've been creative, for a very long time, and done a lot of, different things through the years. That's very true. But my art evolving is probably the biggest evolution recently has been the incorporation of my spiritual growth and my spiritual work into my art. I'm now doing that full on. Every piece I paint, I get, messages and codes to include in the artwork. And it's just happening more and more. Even if I paint a piece and I think I'm just going to paint a standard painting of an animal's face or whatever, I'll start out like that, and then I'll get the call to put, some sort of coding in there or something. So I just
do you not find that painting process is almost like meditative? You are connecting, aren't you? Whilst, yeah.
It is now. It absolutely is, And hilariously, the piece I'm working on at the moment has literally started from the background and is completely coded. I can actually share. And I've just literally started to sketch out what I'm actually going to paint as the animal on top of it. It didn't start with the animal.
Which is normal.
Wow.
Look. Oh, no.
Bring it in front of you. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. That is beautiful.
Yeah,
so it's literally started completely backwards for me, which is really freaky. So, talk about evolution. Whereas normally I would start with a sketch of an animal. That's how I'd start my pieces normally. Not anymore. apparently.
When you started to use your spiritual side to paint, was that difficult to allow yourself to do that? Because you've
Yes.
schooled in a different way of going about making a piece of art.
It wasn't so much that, because like I've been creative all my life. So like mixed media stuff, I used to play around a lot with and do lots of abstract mixed media pieces and all sorts of things like that. Like I've done a lot of that through my I guess my path getting to where I am now. But once I honed in on how much joy just painting the animals gave me, I've sort of pretty much stuck with that, because it's just the thing that lights me up and I get all excited about it and everything. But bringing in the spiritual, as I've become much more spiritually aware and been going through my spiritual growth, bringing in that side of me and then letting that side of me be shown to the world and like putting it out there in my art, that's been a big deal. And that was very difficult to do at the start. And like my first pieces that actually had any sort of thing in them, most of the codes and everything that came through to me, you don't really even know are there. It's like it's hidden there because I wasn't at the stage where I could actually share that out.
You know, so that's the important thing. And of course, you're sharing this with the Bloomz artists on a constant basis. And I'm sure everybody here will agree that influences us as people, as artists as well. Hearing what you're doing, and so you're helping everybody else evolve. This is the great thing about this group.
One of my things that I aim to do is literally, I have this real calling nowadays just to spread the light as far and wide as I can. So
and what way to do it than art? There isn't, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, definitely.
And like Steph with putting different colours into her animals to reflect their environment, you also don't conform, do you, to animal colours sometimes? Sometimes you do, but
never conform.
But the thing is, if you said to anybody, I'm going to do, was it a pink koala? They'd think, but it looks so right. That's the thing. That's the thing that I couldn't understand at the beginning when I started to see your art. It looks right. A green gorilla looks just fine. And so there must be something there. Again, probably your spiritual side in producing those colours that inside us, I'm getting to kind of how. No.
I was going to say, I do. When I was doing those, I did not understand the reasoning why I was doing the colors I was doing, especially the early ones, right? I didn't have any real understanding. Now I understand why. It's because they're the colors that the animal portrays, and I was picking up on that and being able to see that, but I didn't realize that so much at the time and didn't have a proper understanding of that at the time. But now I do. So that's why I think that they resonate when people look at them, even though they're not the color that you would expect to see a koala or a gorilla. But I do feel that because it is actually that animal's aura and spirit that is shining through, that's why I think it still resonates with people, regardless of the fact that it's not the natural colors that we expect.
Which says a lot about us, some people, not being able to see that. But the more you talk about it to people, the more it becomes an obvious thing and it's accepted because there's something within us that says, yeah, she's right. That is, I think there's a lot of this. We can spend a whole session, maybe we should spend a whole one of these chats talking about the spiritual side of art. That'd be a good one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. Actually, that'd be a good one.
I would love that.
Yeah.
You host it.
Come on,
Lisa.
I'll give it a go.
But no, that's evolved in itself, though.
Princess in the corner there. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
I'm very well. Your art is something quite special, isn't it? Because you concentrate on figurative art and the soul that comes out in your art. So that must be a real passionate evolution that you've experienced over the past few years.
Well, yes, I think that when I saw the topic for today, the first thing that came up to my mind was that I really was afraid of colors at the beginning of my artistic path. And yes, the lack of formal education, and I call what Sammy was talking about, was coupling with the lack of foundation. So I really had to make sort of trial and error process to approach to some, studies of colors and something like that. And then you get bold and brave, and you just expand your range of possibilities. And I think that evolution is the other side of fear. When we overcome fears, we are able to see what's on the other side of the door, the dark side of the moon. And if you don't try, you never know. And so this is the basis of my experimenting every day. And maybe some ideas are going to be a failure, not only with figurative art, but with many ideas that come to my mind to promote my art or to spread art through people, because also evolving from COVID is being very hard. So personally, I'm trying to bring some art practice into my local area, and this is quite hard because I've never had so many links with people, and I tended to be so on my own up to now. So I really am trying to explore and start from scratch to see how it's possible to involve people like ladies or kids in a wonderful and entertaining art practice. And this is evolution too.
Oh, it's brilliant. I love your analogy there of evolution and fear are opposite sides of the same coin, because I'm sure that a lot of artists would agree that it's sometimes the fear that holds them back from trying new things, because people are going to judge them by what they then see. But also the fact that you've used COVID and the pandemic to evolve in a very positive way in getting other people involved in art. And that's what every artist should be doing, is getting other people involved in any art of any sort. What reaction have you had in Italy to what you've been doing, Elisa?
And unexpectedly, my audience is more international than Italian. And this is speaking English here is not something that you take for granted, because most of Italian people are not able to speak it fluently or even understand it if you write complicated stuff. So I've always been so divided. I have, like, my soul is divided into two parts, one speaking English and the other one speaking Italian. So I always tended to find an equilibrium in this, and it's quite hard. And at the moment, I would love to not to replicate everything I've been doing in English, because it's impossible. There are so many years of posting and sharing, it's impossible. But I think that I can really try to communicate with my town, and let me have some how can I say? I can be recognized as an artist, as someone who can bring some beauty into their life. And this can happen only if I speak Italian.
Yeah, but art breaks down barriers. Language barriers are broken down by art. Country barriers.
It's a fact. So I can't deny it's a problem. And so I'm starting little by little to build a new Instagram account focused on Italian communication. So me speaking about art just in Italian, but it will take time, and I am aware of this. And in the meanwhile, I will go ahead with my English side of the brain. I think that
Thank you for
allows me to meet
including.
all of you.
Thank you for including us English-speaking people in your art world. It's lovely. And I follow your Italian page on Instagram.
Yeah.
Just hit the translate button and it'll translate it for you. So no problem at all. But what I do love about the whole of this group, as I say, is the eclectic mix of artists. So we're going from figurative, soulful art in Italy to beautiful oil paintings, landscapes with Fiona. So I would... don't get me wrong here, I would class you as a traditional artist in the fact that when people say art, a lot of people think about oil paintings and the classical art. You've taken that, but you put your own twist on it, haven't you?
Yeah, I don't see it as being like the traditional way of painting oils anymore. I've sort of moved away from that a bit. And like most of my fellow artists in this group, I started in one place which for me was like Julie, with drawing and graphite and then colored pencil, and then I've got a lovely big set of pastels which is gathering dust for goodness how many years now. Acrylics, a little bit of watercolor, but that never, sorry about the pun, never quite floated my boat. But yeah, I've tried quite a few things. Haven't tried the encaustic yet. That sounds like fun, and the fibre art and stuff. But most of the traditional type of materials I've used and played with and enjoyed. But then I decided I really ought to focus more on one medium to try to be good at, really good at something, as opposed to okay at lots of things. And oil was definitely my favorite medium. I just love the smell of it, the way it handles, what I can do with it, the ability to have it open more. So it takes longer to dry, basically, so I can rework it for a longer time if I need to. Whereas with acrylics, great thing about acrylics, they dry really quickly. The awful thing about acrylics, they dry really quickly. So it's depending on how you want to work. And for me, I like to be able to move the paint around a bit and, sometimes blend, sometimes not. And so that sort of continued. I've always done animals and portraits as well, but my landscapes are the bit where I put more me into it, possibly, rather than putting the subject into it. For a portrait, it has to be that subject and capture their character, whereas I think maybe with the landscapes I capture a bit more of my character in it. And so I moved on with the landscapes in particular to using painting knives instead of brushes. And I love the effects that some people get with brushes, but I just don't seem to handle them in that same way. But with knives, I can get some really lovely effects and depth, and picking up different colors, and they come out slightly blended but still slightly separate, so you can see the individual colors in that stroke of the knife and the textures that I can get. And it just, I just love it. It just seems to suit the way that I'm working at the moment. That might change. I started incorporating gold and silver leaf into the paintings, as Steph touched on earlier, and I just love the effects that you can get with that. Silver when it's a seascape, glistening through the water, just like the light catching on the little crests of waves, and the gold tends to be more landscape type work, with it just glistening through and catching the light in different ways according to the angle that you're viewing the painting. And I'd like to actually try some of the multicolored metal leaf as well, because it just looks absolutely fantastic. But it needs to be the right subject for that. Obviously, in a forest it may not work, But if it was something like, you know, maybe more of a sunset type thing, you can get all different colors in the sky in a sunset. And I just wonder if that might, it's going to be worth playing with. I think need to get some of it and try. And
one of the most fascinating things that I've seen was the video that you did when you were doing the seascape for Sammy. That wonderful. And how that evolved. I was just so captivated by that piece of video, thinking, oh, it doesn't look much like it. Then all of a sudden the waves appeared and the crests of the, and I was just like this for the whole thing. And I could not believe that you could do that without using one single brush. It was all done with knives and manipulating. And I know that it was time lapse, which, you know, I don't know how long it actually took you, but it just was amazing to watch. And I think, I mean, all of the artists do that sort of thing. They have time lapse to people can watch and see how they do things. But that was just amazing to see this seed sort of form very organically out of the art. And I mean, it was just fascinating, you know, that's, and do you find that you still get that feeling yourself at the start? Well, you would know that that the waves are going to appear. But do you, when that painting evolves, do you know exactly which, or do you let the painting tell you what it needs next?
I generally have a fairly clear image in my head of how I want the painting to turn out. But I think, like, you know, as the other artists here have touched on earlier today, you have to be open to change and the way the painting evolves as well, not just how I'm evolving. And yeah, sometimes I'm thinking it's going to look like this, and it ends up actually looking quite different. I don't generally draw anything out first. I just go straight in with the knives. So that again leaves the painting open to change as well. Sometimes if a bit isn't working, I might scrape the paint off with a knife. It doesn't go completely back to a clean canvas, but it takes the layer of paint off so you can rework that area. And yeah, things change. You know, I may decide that I was going to have a really lovely forest, but I think, no, it's looking too crowded. Take out some trees, add some more trees in if it doesn't work how it is. It's, you know, it's so flexible, and I do like to, when I'm working with the knives, I do like to finish a painting while it's still wet, so that I can either maybe blend or scrape back, or even if it's just that the new paint is integrated into what's already there by going on while it's still wet. It doesn't look like it's been added afterwards. It doesn't look sort of cut out and stuck on. To me, it's important that it all works as a whole. And that's not to say I don't ever make a change once it's dried. Sometimes I do. And the other thing with a lot of texture, if I'm going back in to make a change with a knife, keeping it all looking, you know, with a harmony in the painting of how it was created, when you've got that texture dried, of course, it can give some interesting results, because you can, with the knife, you can just get the color onto just the ridges maybe, but you don't get the same effects as working while the paint's wet. So I don't often go in once it's dry and change things. And, you know, and if it really hasn't worked, it could be one that, you know, just gets shredded up and binned. Whereas with a painting,
send it to Sammy, she'll use it.
yeah, right, Sammy.
Take a picture of it, send it to Julie, she'll use it. But I think what's come out of that we just saying there is, with evolution comes confidence as an artist in making those changes. If you know something's not working, having the confidence to say, no, I'm not going to try that anymore, do it and start again.
Yeah, it's a bit like flogging a dead horse. You know, if it's not working, why keep on with it? Scrape some back, put it to one side, a lesson learned, that didn't work, start again. You know, if you've got something that's not working, you're never going to get a really good painting from it unless you remove what's not working, or, as I say, just use it as a learning lesson and start again, you know. But there we are. So I do still use my brushes. I've got loads of lovely brushes, and I do tend to, won't come as a surprise to most of you, but I'm quite careful with them and wash them well afterwards. And I've had most of them for donkey's years. And you know, but normally now I only use those for doing portraits, but and I do get the occasional one where it's become so worn. It used to be, you know, maybe 1/2 inch long bristles, a nice, you know, thick brush, and it's now got 1/4 inch long, very sparse bristles. But it's great for doing some fur textures and things. So even when they get to that stage, you know, I still look after them, and you know, because it's a great brush for doing certain techniques. And when that one eventually sort of, you know, gets worn completely away, oh my goodness, have I got another one that's wearing out yet? No, I might even have to cut one up a bit to make it into a special brush technique brush, you know. But yeah, but it is all learning and trying new things, like the leaf, the metal leaf in the paintings. I've used beeswax in paintings, Julie, but not in the same way that you've used it, but just to give a bit more bulk and texture to the paint. And it can, if you're using it in underlayers or thin layers, it can give a real glow to the paint. It makes it almost not transparent, but translucent. And I generally work on a white canvas if I'm using knives, and you can get the light of the canvas glowing through if you're using fairly transparent colors, because some pigments are more transparent than others, and the beeswax paste seems to just help that and can give some amazing effect. So again, it's trying different things, and don't be afraid to it. You know, it's at the end of the day, it's a piece of canvas or paper, whatever, and some paint or medium or fibers. Try it. What are you going to lose? You're not actually losing anything, even if it doesn't work, because what you've gained is the knowledge and the experience to bring to future work.
You're not scared of experimenting, are you, Mac? You get the feeling you're flogging a dead horse.
Oh, yeah.
I know, you got Wellington behind you.
Okay, evolution. Well, I'm going to approach it in a slightly different way.
Well, we wouldn't expect anything more of you, Mac.
Anyway, I was thinking of evolution as an unfolding, and it reminded me of a piece that I did called 5 by 5, which had 2 layers of very structured folding within a piece of work. And then what I did with the third layer is folded it, but then scrunched it all together. And I'm thinking that my work as an artist, and maybe others can relate to this as well, as an unfolding, that I have this massive, great piece of paper that has been crushed and folded, and I gradually unfold it. And that is being led by curiosity, things that I love, and somehow connecting to them, things that I experience, my knowledge that I've learned, all of that, and gradually unfolds to what I have no idea. But I would say my work has involved going to art school, doing the drawing thing, the how-to, from the basic structure of using materials to experimenting, because I love playing and experimenting. You would know.
No, do you?
I've done performance work, actual art performance work, and also do other performance work. And it's just, and like Cindy, I'm developing a spiritual practice and have been for the last almost 3 years now. And that is getting integrated with my work. And at the moment, I use chewed gum. And of course, because it's chewed, in your saliva, you have crystals. So you can program crystals. And like Cindy, I'm getting more and more light language coming in, so I'm not quite sure how I'm going to incorporate that in my work at all, and I'm just going to see how far it unfolds.
Some of your
do not know.
Some of your pieces can take a long time to develop into final pieces, if they're ever final pieces. I don't know.
I know it's amazing, because it's a, I mean, apart from doing the traditional things like oil painting and things, and you know how long different materials take to actually manipulate it and getting a good feel for them. And then when I was at art school, I was very much into installation and doing things very, very quickly with minimal objects. Very quickly. And now my work can take years. And that is totally swinging the other way. Whoops, I've come out of my square.
That's all right.
Yeah, so yeah, and it can be very challenging, because, you know, I'm not the most patient person in the world, but I've learning to be patient and trusting. And it's kind of like, which was a good lesson for me to start experience when it comes to spiritual work and trusting. And it's really helped me when I do sessions with other people, because I trust the messages that I get.
Yeah. There's so many things coming out of today's conversation about the fear, the trust, the confidence, trying different techniques, not being afraid to push the boat out, to go left field. And I think there are probably a lot of artists around that are maybe influenced by the spiritual side. They don't realize it. The intuition that they get to do a piece of art, they don't realize where that comes from. But it could be from, as Cindy and Max said, from the spiritual side. So I think, you know, the more that they explore that, because some people are resistant to exploring that, you know, unfortunately. If only they knew, if only they knew.
Or resistant to talking about it, because we all...
Yes.
Oh,
and nowadays, but I mean, I would never have spoken about that side of it until just over the last year or so, when Steph enrolled me into a manifestation course. And that has had a real effect on me. And then I got involved with Cindy's 21-day abundance challenge, which has had a huge effect.
Don't you think also... I'm sorry, just going to... Because like Cindy puts it in her work, and obviously Max putting it in hers. And I think we probably all put it in our work. But different people receive different messages. But actually, it becomes easier from different people, i.e. the reason I sent you that course on manifesting was because I knew that person who delivered that course was for you.
Oh yeah.
But in the same with art, isn't it? Previously you would have picked up a piece of Cindy's art and seen the pink koala and thought, gosh, yes, that absolutely, and not realizing that actually you're seeing the aura that Cindy's seeing around that. So, and that may, oh right, and then you get more into it, and then suddenly Cindy can talk to you about the rest of it. But you have to find a connection with it. And that's why I think more artists who talk about what actually inspired them and what's in there, if that talks to you, then talk to that artist about it, because that might be just which give you a bit of clarity as to what you've been thinking. And, you know, it opens that conversation.
It's so much better, I think, to buy a piece of art from the artist that you could speak to and have a relationship with, than just go into a gallery and buy something because you like the look of it on the wall without speaking to the artist. I think there's a lot to be said about contacting an artist. Maybe you found them online and talking to them about their piece, that piece of art you're interested in, finding out what their inspiration was. Now, personally, my evolution as an artist has been very, very short-lived. You know that the evolution of man.
Yeah.
Second chimp from the left.
Still hunched over.
That's the way I think of it. Because although I'm probably doing myself a bit of unjust there, because I actually was 22 years a landscape gardener. So the art that I was doing then was I was designing people's gardens, and I used to this is no pun, I used to treat it as a canvas, cross between a canvas and a stage, because I was very into acting. I was an actor years ago, and I used to treat designing a border with the sort of scenery at the back and the cameo parts and the star players. And so I was sort of painting with plants at the time. And then all of a sudden, because of Steph's influence, I started to make lamps, because she needed some lamps for a stand at a show. And that evolved into me remembering my granddad's potting, my granddad's shed when I was little, and all the old bits, because he was a plumber and builder, all the old bits of pipe work he had in there. And then all of a sudden, something sort of started to click. And, you know, those bits of pipe sort of found themselves together as lamps, and it's evolved into characters now. And so it's happened over a very short period of time for me, unlike a lot of you that have been painting and sculpting and that for years and years. This is only since, what is it, 2017, is it? 16, 17? 18, I think. 2018, I think, was when I first started to make those lamps for the stand at the show we did. And so I've had a very, very quick evolution. I mean, Darwin on speed, I think, you know, get me up to where I am now. But Lord knows where mine's going to evolve, because every time, and I can't wait to get my studio back, a bit like Julie, you know, no studio, because I can't make lamps because I need an actual bit of a workshop. So I'm champing at the bit to get back. And I'm sure after this, we'll be almost a year off making any sort of creating any lamps. There's something will happen when I start again that I didn't expect to happen. And that's the exciting bit that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. You know,
I can't see myself going back to just making another guitar. Something will have happened, and it might be imperceptible. It might be just something, some little way I do something differently. I'm sure the courses that I've been on with Mike Doodle's Manifestation and Cindy's Abundance, that will reflect in how my art will evolve. And that's exciting. And I'm as excited as you, Julie, about getting the studio back and starting work again.
Yeah, I think it's Steve. It's like when you go back into your studios. I'm the same. Mine's been packed up for a couple of months now.
Of course, yeah, as well.
It's just about being open to the possibilities of everything, because you'll set your studio up, and then all of a sudden you'll have a like a brain rush, and there'll be so much whizzing around your head. So just make sure you've got your notepad and paper to write everything down. I keep a notepad and paper by the side of my bed. So like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I might wake up and I'll write something down. When I wake up properly the next day, I might not be able to read my writing. And I'll think, well, what was that about? But I'll keep it, because you never know when you need it.
You never know. And you'll remember then why you wrote it. And yeah. Sometimes, this is the excitement. And I think this morning or this evening for Cindy, we've covered in great depth what the evolution of us as artists and our art has meant. You know, it's lovely, and this is really what this is all about. Our monthly Babble and Beyond is to give you as the viewer a chance to visit our lives as artists in a bit more depth than you would get by just visiting our websites or our Instagram page. And of course, you can ask us questions. Just email thebloomz.co.uk, info@thebloomz.co.uk, or contact the individual artists, ask them any questions about anything that we talked about. But I think we will definitely do the spiritual side of art in one of our future ones. And that's going to be really exciting, because that will bring up a whole new range of topics, probably that will surprise us as artists sat here today. So thank you all for joining me this morning. Anybody got any closing comments, or enjoy the rest of your day or your evenings? And we will look forward to seeing you again.
Keep breaking the rules.
Yeah, keep breaking the rules. Yeah.
If you're an artist watching it, I'm sure a lot of artists will be watching this. I hope so, because
Henry wants to say hi.
Oh, Henry.
Embrace the fear.
Yeah, embrace the fear.
Is that Henry you got there?
Yeah.
Henry, yeah.
Embrace the fear, have the confidence, and just whatever your intuition tells you to do, give it a try. We all have. And we're all here and we're all loving it and getting great joy from our art. And hopefully that joy is coming over in these chats to you each month. So take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again next month. Bye-bye.
Bye. 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 Wow, that's excellent.
Keeping that in.
I want to keep that in. That's brilliant.
I love
Keep
you,
that in.
Oh,
Thank you,
Henry.
Henry.
Perfect.
Oh, dear.